The parking lot was half empty when Brianna Montgomery sat in her 10-year-old Honda, staring at her phone like it might bite her. Her hands shook slightly as she pulled up Trevor's number. The afternoon sun beat down through the windshield, making the interior uncomfortably hot, but she barely noticed. Her mind was too busy rehearsing what she was about to do. She pressed call. Yeah. Trevor's voice came through, distracted, with noise in the background. Hey honey, are you busy? Brianna kept her voice light, normal. Kind of. What's up? I'm at the store and I just realized we're completely out of groceries. Plus, the car is making that weird noise again, and the mechanic said it needs to be looked at soon. She paused, her heart pounding. Could you send me $150? I'll grab everything we need and get the car checked. The silence on the other end stretched too long. $150? Trevor's tone changed. Brianna, seriously? What happened to the money from your last paycheck? I paid the electric bill and the water bill. You know teaching doesn't exactly pay much, and we agreed I'd handle the utilities while I what? Pay for everything else. His voice rose. I'm tired of you being so careless with money. We can't keep spending like this. Brianna's grip tightened on the phone. Trevor, it's groceries and car maintenance. Basic necessities. You need to budget better. I can't just hand out money every time you run short. There was a sound in the background, a woman's laugh, light and carefree. Look, I have important expenses right now. I need to focus on the future, not bail you out constantly. The future? Brianna's voice remained steady despite the ice forming in her chest. What expenses? Business stuff. Investment opportunities. Things that will actually help us grow instead of just surviving. His irritation was clear. Maybe if you'd focused on a real career instead of playing teacher, we wouldn't be in this position. The words hit like a slap. For 5 years, she'd supported his dreams, encouraged his business ventures that never quite worked out, covered bills when he came up short. She'd been patient, loving, and self-sacrificing. Who's with you? She asked quietly. What? Nobody. Just people from work. I have to go, Brianna. We'll talk about this later. And maybe start looking at our spending habits because this can't continue. He hung up. Brianna sat motionless, phone still pressed to her ear even though the line was dead. Around her, people walked past with shopping carts, living their normal lives, unaware that hers was cracking apart. The woman's laugh echoed in her memory. People from work. Trevor worked from home as a consultant. He rarely went into any office. She lowered the phone and stared straight ahead at the grocery store entrance. A mother guided her daughter through the automatic doors. An elderly couple walked out holding hands. Normal people doing normal things. If only they knew what was really happening. Brianna reached into her purse and pulled out a different phone, one Trevor didn't know about. She opened her banking app and looked at the balance. $2,347,892,438.52. $2,347,892,438.52. She could buy this entire grocery store chain if she wanted. She could buy 100 cars. She could solve their every financial problem with a single transaction. But Trevor had just refused to send her $150 for groceries. More importantly, he'd done it with cruelty and contempt. 6 months ago, everything had changed when her Uncle Bernard's lawyer contacted her. Uncle Bernard, her father's brother who'd moved to Silicon Valley in the 90s and whom she'd only met a handful of times, had passed away. He'd never married, never had children, and in his will, he'd left everything to Brianna, his only niece who'd once sent him a heartfelt letter thanking him for a birthday card he'd sent when she was 12. That everything turned out to be a tech company worth billions. Montgomery Data Systems had created revolutionary encryption software that virtually every major corporation now used. The lawyers explained that Uncle Bernard had wanted family to carry on his legacy, and Brianna was it. She'd been in shock for weeks. Then came the decision, tell Trevor or wait. Something made her pause. Maybe it was the way he'd been acting lately, distant, secretive, always on his phone. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was divine intervention. Whatever it was, she decided to keep it secret for a while, maintaining her teaching job while secretly managing her inheritance through trusted advisors. She'd planned to reveal everything on their anniversary next month. She'd imagined his face, his joy, his pride in her. She'd pictured them planning their future together with unlimited possibilities. But today she decided to test him first. One simple test. Ask for $150 and see what happened. He'd failed spectacularly. Brianna put both phones away and started her car. She didn't need groceries from this store. She didn't need Trevor to send her money. What she needed was the truth about who her husband really was. And she knew exactly how to find it. As she drove away from the parking lot, her face was calm but her mind was racing. The woman's laugh played on repeat in her memory. The contempt in Trevor's voice. The way he dismissed her career, her contributions, her worth. 5 years of marriage and it had come to this moment. A $150 test that revealed everything. Her phone buzzed. A text from Trevor, "Sorry if I was harsh. Stressed about work. Love you." Brianna read it without emotion. Stressed about work. Right. She didn't respond. Instead, she made a call to someone else entirely. Patricia Cole Investigations, a professional voice answered. "Hello, Miss Cole. My name is Brianna Montgomery, and I need to hire you for a private matter. Money is no object. When can we meet?" Patricia Cole's office was downtown in a building that looked deliberately ordinary. Brianna had chosen her after extensive research. Patricia was the best investigator in the city, discreet and thorough. When Brianna walked in the next morning before school, Patricia was already waiting with coffee and a notepad. "Mrs. Montgomery," Patricia stood, shaking her hand firmly. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything. "Please sit. You mentioned this was urgent." Brianna sat down and folded her hands in her lap. "I need you to investigate my husband, Trevor Montgomery. I believe he's having an affair." Patricia nodded, writing. "What makes you suspicious?" "He comes home late. He's secretive with his phone. He's emotionally distant. Yesterday, he refused to send me money for groceries but I heard a woman laughing in the background." Brianna's voice remained steady. "He said he was with work people but he works from home. The pieces don't fit." "How long have you been married?" 5 years. "We met when I was in my last year of graduate school for education. He was charming, ambitious, supportive. At least, I thought he was supportive." Brianna looked out the window at the city below. "For the first few years things were good. Then gradually he changed. Or maybe I just started seeing clearly." Patricia watched her carefully. "Mrs. Montgomery, I have to ask some standard questions. Are you prepared for what we might find? Sometimes investigations reveal difficult truths." "I'm prepared," Brianna said. "I need to know the truth whatever it is." "Understood. Now my fee is—" "Money isn't a concern," Brianna interrupted gently. "I need speed and discretion more than anything. Whatever you charge, double it and give me results fast." Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly. "All right. I'll need some information. Trevor's full name, where he works, his usual schedule, phone number if you have it." Brianna provided everything, watching Patricia take efficient notes. As she talked, she thought about how she'd gotten here. How 6 months ago she'd been a simple teacher worried about paying bills, and now she was sitting in a private investigator's office with billions in the bank. Uncle Bernard had been a mystery to her growing up. Her father's older brother who'd gone to California in search of fortune and found it. He'd send birthday cards with checks for $20, Christmas cards with $50. Small amounts that meant a lot to her family. When she was 12, she'd written him a thank you letter, telling him about her dream to become a teacher and help kids learn. He'd written back, a rare occurrence, saying he admired her goals and knew she'd do great things. That was the last direct communication they'd had until his lawyer called. "Ms. Montgomery, I'm Roger Hartwell, executor of Bernard Montgomery's estate. I'm calling to inform you that you've been named sole beneficiary of his will." She'd thought it might be a few $1,000s, maybe enough to pay off some student loans. Then the lawyer had asked her to sit down and explained about Montgomery Data Systems, the valuation, the assets, the properties. She'd actually laughed at first, thinking it was a scam. But it wasn't. Every document checked out. Every verification confirmed it. Bernard Montgomery, the uncle she barely knew, had left her a fortune beyond imagination. The lawyers had asked what she wanted to do. The company practically ran itself with an excellent executive team. She could remain a silent owner or get involved or sell it entirely. She'd decided to stay involved, taking virtual meetings, learning the business, making strategic decisions. Her teaching background actually helped. She was good at understanding complex systems and breaking them down. But she told no one. Not Trevor. Not her friends. Not even her mother, though that was partly because Mom would have told everyone in town within hours. She'd wanted time to process it, to plan, to figure out how this changed her life. And she'd wanted to see if Trevor loved her for her, or for what she could provide. Now she had her answer. "Mrs. Montgomery?" Patricia's voice broke through her thoughts. "Is there anything else you can tell me that might help?" Brianna focused back on the present. "He's been spending more than usual. I'm not sure where the money is coming from. His consulting business has been slow, or so he says. But he bought new clothes recently, expensive ones. He's been getting his hair cut at a fancy place downtown. Little things that don't add up. Do you have access to his accounts? Joint checking and savings, yes. But I suspect he might have others I don't know about. Patricia nodded. I'll look into it. Give me 3 days. I'll have preliminary information for you by Friday. 3 days, Brianna repeated. In 3 days she'd know the truth about her marriage. 3 days to confirm what her gut already told her. She stood and shook Patricia's hand again. Thank you. I'll wait for your call. As Brianna left the office and headed to school, she felt strange. Part of her was heartbroken, but another part was cold and clear. She'd built a life with Trevor based on what she thought was love and partnership. If that was a lie, then she needed to know. And if it was a lie, she had the resources to walk away without looking back. Her phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. What do you want for dinner? I'll cook tonight. She almost laughed. Now he was being considerate? After yesterday's cruelty? She texted back. Whatever you want is fine. I'll be home by 6. She taught her classes that day with her usual energy, helping students understand fractions and encouraging a shy boy who finally raised his hand to answer a question. Teaching grounded her. These kids didn't care if she was rich or poor. They just needed someone to believe in them. At lunch, she checked her secret phone. Her investment advisor had sent an update. 3 tech startups she'd invested in were performing exceptionally well. Her wealth had grown by another $1 million overnight. She shook her head at the absurdity. While Trevor counted pennies and refused her $150, she'd made $1 million in her sleep. That evening, she came home to find Trevor in the kitchen making pasta. He smiled at her, kissed her cheek, asked about her day. He was performing, she realized. Trying to make up for yesterday without actually apologizing or acknowledging what he'd done. How was your day? She asked, setting her bag down. Good, productive. Had some client calls. He stirred the sauce. Listen, about yesterday I was stressed. Work has been intense. It's fine, she said, because what else could she say right now? She wasn't ready to confront him yet. Not until she had all the facts. They ate dinner making small talk. Trevor's phone buzzed several times. Each time he glanced at it quickly, then ignored it. She watched him carefully, seeing the signs she'd missed before. The way his eyes darted to the phone. The slight tension in his shoulders. The fake relaxation in his smile. I'm going to take a bath, she said after dinner, standing up. Long day. Sure, babe. I'll clean up here. In the bathroom, she ran the water and sat on the edge of the tub, thinking. 2 more days until Patricia called. 2 more days of pretending everything was normal. She could do this. She'd spent 6 months keeping $1 billion secret. She could manage 2 more days. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror. She looked the same face, same hair, same person. But inside, everything had shifted. The Brianna who'd asked Trevor for $150 expecting his support was gone. In her place was someone harder, clearer, someone who finally saw the truth. And that truth was going to set her free. Friday afternoon, Brianna left school and drove straight to Patricia's office. 3 days had felt like 3 years. She'd maintained her normal routine, teaching, cooking dinner, smiling at Trevor, while inside she'd been counting hours. Now, sitting across from Patricia again, she braced herself. Patricia slid a thick folder across the desk. I'm sorry, Mrs. Montgomery. Your instincts were correct. Brianna opened the folder. The first photo showed Trevor and a woman she didn't recognize standing close together outside a restaurant. The woman was tall, blonde, dressed in an expensive suit. They were holding hands. Her name is Vanessa Chin, Patricia said. She's a real estate agent with Prestige Properties. Age 32, divorced, no children. They met 8 months ago when Trevor attended an open house in the Riverside district. 8 months. Brianna kept her face neutral as she flipped through more photos. Trevor and Vanessa at dinner. Walking through a park. Entering an apartment building together. The images were clear, undeniable. This is an apartment Trevor has been renting for the past 4 months, Patricia continued, pointing to one photo. He meets Vanessa there at least 3 times a week. They also go out to restaurants, always on the other side of town where you're less likely to have mutual acquaintances. How is he paying for this? Brianna's voice was steady. That's interesting. Patricia pulled out bank statements. Trevor has a separate account you weren't aware of. He's been transferring money from your joint account into this private account in small amounts, $200 here, $300 there, over the past year. Nothing large enough to trigger your attention, but it adds up. He's also taken out a credit card in his name only. The statements show charges at expensive restaurants, jewelry stores, and that apartment rental. Brianna studied the statements. While she'd been carefully budgeting, worried about bills, Trevor had been systematically siphoning off their shared money to fund his affair. The betrayal went deeper than she'd imagined. "There's more," Patricia said quietly. "I intercepted some text messages." She showed Brianna her tablet with screenshots. "Trevor to Vanessa, can't wait to see you tonight. B is working late again. Finally building something real with you." Vanessa to Trevor, "When are you going to tell her? I'm tired of hiding." Trevor to Vanessa, "Soon. I promise. Just need to handle it right. She's emotional and I don't want drama." Brianna read through dozens of messages. Trevor complaining about her. Trevor promising Vanessa they'd be together openly soon. Trevor calling Brianna boring, limited, stuck in a dead-end job. Vanessa sending photos Brianna didn't look at closely. "How much do I owe you?" Brianna asked, closing the folder. "Mrs. Montgomery, considering the speed you needed and the complexity." "Patricia, I'm going to be honest with you about something, because I trust your discretion and I may need your services again." Brianna met her eyes. 6 months ago, I inherited a substantial fortune. My net worth is currently over $2 billion. Trevor doesn't know. I was planning to tell him, but first I wanted to make sure he loved me for me, not for money I might have. Patricia's eyes widened slightly, but she remained professional. "I see. The $150 test was my way of checking. He failed. And now I know why." Brianna stood. "Send me your full bill, including any additional hours you might need for the next phase. I'm going to need documentation for divorce proceedings. I'll want every financial transaction traced, every meeting logged, a complete timeline." "I can do that," Patricia said, standing as well. "May I say something?" "Of course. In my 30 years doing this work, I've seen many betrayed spouses. Most are devastated, angry, or broken. You're none of those things." Patricia looked at her with something like respect. "You're strategic. That's going to serve you well. I've been teaching long enough to know that emotions have their place, but decisions should be based on facts." Brianna picked up the folder. "These are facts. Now I need to act on them appropriately. What's your next step?" "I'm going to see a divorce attorney. Then I'm going to continue my normal life until I'm ready to make my move." Trevor thinks he's in control, planning his exit on his timeline. He's wrong. I control the timeline now. That evening, Brianna sat in her car outside her house, folder on the passenger seat. She could see lights on inside. Trevor was home. Part of her wanted to storm in right now, throw the evidence in his face, scream about the betrayal. But that wasn't strategic. That was emotional. Instead, she took a deep breath and called Naomi Williams, her friend from college who'd become a successful attorney. "Brianna, it's been too long." Naomi's warm voice filled the car. "Hey Naomi. I need your help with something serious. Do you have time to talk?" "Always. What's going on?" "I need a divorce attorney. The best one you know. And I need to tell you something I haven't told anyone else." Brianna looked at her house, where her cheating husband was probably texting his mistress. "My life is not what anyone thinks it is." She told Naomi everything: the inheritance, the secret wealth, the $150 test, the investigation, Trevor's affair. Naomi listened without interrupting, and when Brianna finished, there was a long pause. "Okay," Naomi finally said. "First, I'm sorry you're going through this. Second, holy hell, you're a billionaire. Third, I know exactly the attorney you need. Her name is Helena Reeves and she's a shark. She'll make sure Trevor gets nothing he's not legally entitled to, which, given the circumstances and the timing of your inheritance, should be nothing. Can you set up a meeting?" "I'll call her tonight." "How are you holding up?" "I don't know yet," Brianna admitted. "I keep thinking about all the times I worried about money while he was spending it on her. All the times I worked extra hours tutoring to help pay our bills while he was renting an apartment for his affair. I feel stupid." "You're not stupid. You're trusting, which is what you should be in a marriage. He's the one who betrayed that trust. And honestly, Bri, you're about to show him what a massive mistake he made." Brianna smiled slightly. "Yes, I am." After hanging up, she sat for a few more minutes, gathering herself. Then she got out of the car, folder hidden in her work bag, and went inside. "Hey babe." Trevor called from the living room. He was on the couch watching TV. "How was work?" "Fine. Students were good today." She set her bag down carefully. "I'm going to change and start dinner. I can order something if you're tired." "No, I'll cook." She needed something to do with her hands, something normal and routine while her mind planned the next steps. In the bedroom she changed clothes and looked around. This had been their space, their sanctuary. Now it felt contaminated. Every photo on the dresser, every piece of shared furniture, all of it felt like a lie. She'd been living in a marriage that existed only in her imagination. Her phone buzzed. A text from Naomi: "Helena can see you Monday morning 9 a.m. I'll come with you. And Bree? Make him pay for what he did." Brianna texted back, "Thank you. And don't worry. He will." Over the weekend, Brianna played the perfect wife. She cooked Trevor's favorite meals. She laughed at his jokes. She asked about his work and listened to his lies about client meetings and business opportunities. She watched him lie smoothly, easily, like he'd been practicing. On Sunday evening they sat on the couch watching a movie. Trevor's phone buzzed and he glanced at it, smiling slightly before catching himself. Brianna saw it all. She wondered if Vanessa had sent him something sweet, something romantic. She wondered if they talked about their future together, the one they were planning on the ashes of this marriage. "I love you," Trevor said suddenly, putting his arm around her. "I love you too," Brianna replied, and the words felt like ash in her mouth. She didn't love this man. She'd loved who she thought he was. That person didn't exist. Monday morning, Brianna told Trevor she had a doctor's appointment and left early. Instead, she met Naomi downtown and they walked together into Helena Reeves' office on the 30th floor of a glass building. Helena was exactly what Naomi had described: sharp-eyed, confident, dressed impeccably. She shook Brianna's hand with a firm grip. "Ms. Williams briefed me on your situation. Let's talk specifics." Helena sat behind her desk, professional and direct. "First, tell me about the inheritance. When did it happen? How is it structured?" Brianna explained everything while Helena took notes. The timing: 6 months into the marriage. The complete separation of assets. The inheritance went into accounts only in her name, managed by trustees Trevor never knew about. Her continued work as a teacher to maintain appearances. "Smart," Helena said. "Very smart. In this state, inherited assets kept separate from marital property remain separate in divorce. Trevor would have no claim to your inheritance or anything you've earned from it. What about the affair? Does that matter legally? It matters for leverage and in the court of public opinion, but this is a no-fault divorce state. However, his financial infidelity, taking marital funds to support an affair, that we can use. Do you have documentation?" Brianna handed over Patricia's folder. Helena went through it methodically, her expression growing colder with each page. "He was systematic about it. Small transfers, hidden accounts, secret expenses. All while you were the primary breadwinner with your teaching salary." Helena looked up. "Mrs. Montgomery, by the time I'm done, Trevor won't know what hit him. Are you ready for this process? It can get ugly." "I'm ready," Brianna said. "I want out, I want it clean, and I want him to understand exactly what he lost." Helena smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "Then let's get started." The next 2 weeks became a masterclass in deception. Brianna maintained her life perfectly, teaching her students, grading papers, cooking dinners at home with Trevor. She smiled, laughed, played her role. But beneath the surface she was building a fortress. Helena's team worked rapidly, preparing divorce documents and filing them under seal to prevent Trevor from getting advance warning. Patricia continued surveillance, documenting every meeting between Trevor and Vanessa, every lie he told. Brianna's financial advisors restructured her assets to ensure complete separation from anything Trevor might touch. At home, Trevor grew bolder. He came home later, his excuses thinner. One Thursday night, he didn't come home until almost midnight. "Where were you?" Brianna asked from the couch where she'd been reading. "Client dinner ran late. You know how it is, had to close a deal." He kissed the top of her head absently. "You didn't wait up, did you? Just wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm fine, babe. You worry too much." He headed to the bedroom. "Coming to bed?" "In a bit." She sat in the quiet house after he'd gone, thinking about the photos Patricia had sent earlier. Trevor and Vanessa at an expensive steakhouse, leaning close over wine. Trevor laughing, relaxed, happy. More present with Vanessa than he'd been with Brianna in months. That Saturday something shifted. They were sitting at breakfast when Trevor's phone rang. He glanced at it, silenced it quickly, but not before Brianna saw V on the screen. "Who was that?" she asked casually. "Nobody. Spam call." He set the phone face down. "Trevor, can I ask you something?" He looked up, wary. "Sure. Are we okay? I feel like you've been distant lately." His expression softened into concern. Practiced, perfect concern. Babe, I'm sorry. Work has been crazy stressful. I know I've been distracted. But we're fine. Better than fine. Are you sure? Because if something's wrong, I want to know. I want to fix it. He reached across the table and took her hand. Nothing's wrong. I promise. Actually, I've been working on a surprise for our anniversary. That's part of the stress. Brianna felt cold. Their anniversary was in 3 weeks. What surprise was he planning? Asking for a divorce? Introducing Vanessa as his new partner? You don't have to stress about our anniversary, she said gently. Just being together is enough. You deserve something special. And I'm going to make sure you get it. He squeezed her hand and let go, standing up. I have to run some errands. Want me to grab anything? No, I'm good. After he left, she sat at the table looking at her reflection in the kitchen window. She looked tired. This double life was exhausting. But she was almost ready. Just a bit longer. That afternoon, she had a video call with her company's executive team. They were discussing a major expansion that would triple their market presence. The CEO, a brilliant woman named Janet Rodriguez, presented the numbers. Ms. Montgomery, if we proceed with this acquisition, your net worth will increase substantially. We're looking at approximately $3 billion by year's end. What are the risks? Brianna asked, studying the documents on her screen. Minimal. The target company is undervalued and their technology complements ours perfectly. We've done extensive due diligence. Then proceed. I trust your judgment, Janet. Thank you. Also, some board members have expressed interest in meeting you in person. They've been impressed with your insights over the past months. Let's schedule something for next month. After I've handled some personal matters. When the call ended, Brianna sat back and marveled at the surreal nature of her life. In the morning, she'd been discussing breakfast and errands with Trevor. In the afternoon, she was approving a business deal worth hundreds of millions. Her phone rang. Patricia. I have something you need to see, the investigator said without preamble. Can you meet me? An hour later, Brianna sat in Patricia's car in a parking garage downtown. Patricia handed her a tablet. This was recorded yesterday. Trevor and Vanessa at the apartment. The video showed them in what was clearly a bedroom, talking. The audio was clear enough. When are you going to leave her? Vanessa was asking. You keep saying soon, but I need a timeline, Trevor. I'm not getting any younger. I know, baby. I promise after our anniversary. I'll tell her then. I just need to handle it right. Why after the anniversary? Because I don't want to seem like a complete jerk, leaving her right before. It'll be easier if I wait until just after. Then I can say we tried but it didn't work. And you're sure she won't fight the divorce? Trevor laughed. Fight it with what? She's a teacher making barely anything. She has no resources for a legal battle. She'll be hurt but she'll accept it. Trust me, I know my wife. She's sweet but she's not a fighter. Brianna paused the video. That's enough. There's more if you want. No. That's enough. She handed back the tablet, her face expressionless. Send the full recording to Helena. Are you okay? I'm fine. And strangely she was. The words should have hurt more, but they just confirmed what she already knew. Trevor saw her as weak, powerless, someone to be managed and discarded. He had no idea who he was actually dealing with. When are you serving him? Patricia asked. Soon. Helena says the papers are ready. I'm just deciding on the right moment. Brianna looked out the window at the city. I want maximum impact. You're not what I expected when you first walked into my office, Patricia said. Most betrayed spouses are emotional, reactive. You're different. I teach middle school, Brianna said with a slight smile. You learn patience and strategy when dealing with teenagers. And you learn that sometimes the best response to bad behavior is natural consequences. He's going to regret underestimating you. Yes, Brianna agreed. He really is. That evening, Trevor came home with flowers, cheap ones from the grocery store. For my beautiful wife, he said, handing them to her. Brianna arranged them in a vase, thanked him, and served the dinner she'd prepared. They ate together, talking about nothing. Trevor's phone buzzed repeatedly. Each time he ignored it with visible effort. Popular tonight, Brianna commented. Just work stuff. Can wait until tomorrow. After dinner, he suggested they watch a movie together. They sat on the couch, his arm around her, and Brianna felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a vast emptiness where her love used to be. I appreciate you, Trevor said suddenly. I know I don't say it enough, but I do. You're a good wife, Brianna. She looked at him, at this man she'd pledged her life to, who was systematically betraying her while planning his exit. "Thank you," she said simply. That night, lying in bed beside him, she made her final decision. Their anniversary was in 3 weeks. He planned to tell her shortly after that he wanted a divorce, believing she'd be hurt but compliant, that she'd simply accept his decision and move on. He was wrong. She'd tell him first on their anniversary in a way he'd never forget. She'd show him exactly what he'd thrown away. And by the time she was done, Trevor would understand that the biggest mistake of his life was thinking Brianna Montgomery was someone he could use and discard. She fell asleep with a plan fully formed, precise as a mathematical proof, devastating as a natural disaster. Trevor snored beside her, comfortable and confident in his deceptions. He shouldn't have been. While Trevor spent his days pretending to work from home and sneaking off to see Vanessa, Brianna spent hers building an empire. She became an expert at compartmentalization, teacher by morning, secret billionaire by afternoon, perfect wife by evening. Her lunch breaks became strategy sessions. Sitting in her car in the school parking lot, she'd join video calls with investment teams, approving acquisitions, reviewing market analyses. Her teaching colleagues thought she was just eating quickly and grading papers. They had no idea she was reshaping her financial future. "Ms. Montgomery, the tech startup in Austin wants to accept our offer," her investment advisor Marcus Chin told her during one call. "If we proceed, you'll own a 40% stake in one of the fastest growing cybersecurity firms in the country." What's their burn rate versus revenue? They're 6 months from profitability with current projections. Our capital injection would accelerate that timeline significantly. Proceed. But I want quarterly reports and a seat on their advisory board. Done. Also, the real estate portfolio we discussed, 3 commercial properties in downtown Seattle. The sellers accepted your offer. Brianna looked at the numbers on her phone. The properties would generate substantial rental income while appreciating in value. Transfer the funds. Anything else? Your company's stock value increased another 12% this quarter. At this rate, you'll hit $3 billion net worth within 2 months. She ended the call and sat back thinking about the absurdity. Last week, Trevor had complained about her buying name-brand cereal instead of store-brand to save $3. This morning she'd approved the purchase of 3 buildings worth $20 million. That afternoon she taught her students about fractions, patiently explaining why dividing by 0 was impossible. A girl named Stephanie finally understood and her face lit up with that beautiful moment of comprehension. This, Brianna thought, was why she still taught despite everything. No amount of money could replace that pure joy of helping a child understand something new. After school, she drove to a building across town she'd recently purchased through an LLC. The penthouse had been move-in ready, and she'd been slowly furnishing it with pieces Trevor would never see. It would be her home after the divorce, a place he'd never touched, never contaminated with his lies. Standing on the balcony overlooking the city, she called Naomi. "Hey, how's the double life?" Naomi asked cheerfully. "Exhausting but manageable. How's the legal paperwork coming?" "Helena has everything ready. The divorce petition is airtight. She's documented every misappropriation of marital funds, every secret expense. Trevor's going to have a very bad day when he's served." "Good." Brianna watched the sunset paint the sky. "I've been thinking about the timing." "Your anniversary?" "Yes. 5 years deserves some acknowledgement, don't you think?" "You're devious." "I love it. I'm planning something special. A dinner at Montrose." "That fancy place downtown? The one that's impossible to get reservations at?" Brianna smiled. "I own Montrose. Well, my LLC does. I bought it last month as part of a restaurant group acquisition. Getting a reservation won't be a problem." Naomi laughed. "You're my hero." "Seriously? So what's the plan?" "Dinner with Trevor. Intimate, romantic, the works. And during dessert, I'll give him my anniversary gift. Divorce papers documenting every lie, every betrayal, every dollar he stole from our joint account to fund his affair." "That's cold." "He deserves cold. He's been planning to divorce me right after our anniversary, thinking I'm too weak and poor to fight back. I'm just moving up his timeline and changing the power dynamic." "When are you going to tell him about the money?" "During the same dinner. I want to see his face when he realizes what he's losing. Not just me but the life he could have had if he'd been faithful." They talked for a while longer about strategy and logistics. After hanging up, Brianna walked through her penthouse, envisioning the life she'd build here. She'd already ordered furniture that reflected her taste. Modern, clean lines, Nothing like the outdated pieces Trevor had insisted on keeping at their current house. Her phone buzzed. "Trevor, working late tonight. Don't wait up." She almost laughed. Working late meant Vanessa. She texted back, "Okay, be safe." Instead of going home to an empty house, she ordered dinner from one of the city's best restaurants, another one she partially owned, and ate on her penthouse balcony. The food was incredible, the view was spectacular, and for the first time in weeks she felt truly peaceful. Her phone rang. Janet Rodriguez from her company. "Ms. Montgomery, sorry to call after hours. We have a situation that needs your input." "What's going on?" "A competitor is trying to poach 3 of our key engineers. They're offering substantial raises and benefits packages." "Counteroffer," Brianna said immediately. "Match their salary, add a 20% bonus and give them stock options. Those engineers are worth more than money, they're worth company loyalty and industry knowledge. We can't afford to lose them." "That's generous. It's strategic. Losing them would cost us more in the long run through lost productivity and training new people. Make the offer tomorrow and let me know their response." After the call, she thought about leadership. 6 months ago, she'd had no business experience beyond balancing a household budget. Now she was making multimillion-dollar decisions with confidence. Turned out teaching had prepared her well. Both required understanding people, identifying problems, and creating solutions. She spent the evening researching another potential investment, a clean energy company that was developing innovative solar technology. By midnight, she'd read through their entire business plan and financial projections. She decided to invest. When she finally drove home at 1 in the morning, Trevor's car was in the driveway. She found him asleep on the couch, TV still on. He woke when she came in. "Hey, where were you?" He rubbed his eyes, groggy. "Couldn't sleep, so I went for a drive. Ended up at that all-night bookstore on 4th Street. She set down her purse. "How was your work evening?" "Productive. Landed a new client." He stood and stretched. "Come to bed." They walked upstairs together. Trevor fell asleep within minutes, comfortable with his lies. Brianna lay awake beside him, thinking about the next 2 weeks. She needed to maintain the performance just a little longer. Then everything would change. The next morning was Saturday. Brianna made breakfast while Trevor showered. Her phone lit up with a message from Patricia. "Update. Trevor meeting Vanessa today at 2 p.m. The usual apartment." Perfect. That gave Brianna the whole day to herself. When Trevor came downstairs, she smiled at him. "I have to go into school today to prepare some materials for next week. Probably be gone most of the afternoon." "On a Saturday? Can't you do it Monday?" "Big presentation coming up for the students. Want to make sure it's perfect." "You work too hard for what they pay you," Trevor said, not looking up from his phone. "Sometimes I think you care more about those kids than our future." "Education is important," she said mildly. "So is financial success. But you do you, babe." After he left, supposedly to run errands but actually to meet Vanessa, Brianna went to her penthouse. She had a video meeting with a philanthropic foundation about education funding. They wanted her input on a major grant program for underprivileged schools. "Ms. Montgomery, your background in education combined with your resources makes you uniquely qualified to help shape this program," the foundation director said. "I'd be honored. Education changed my life. I want to make sure every child has access to quality learning regardless of their economic situation. Would you be willing to serve on our board?" "Absolutely. And I'd like to make a personal donation to the foundation. $5 million to start, earmarked specifically for teacher training and classroom resources." The director's eyes widened. "That's incredibly generous. It's necessary. Teachers are underpaid and under-resourced. This is one way to help change that." After the meeting, she felt energized. This was what wealth could do: make real change, help real people. Trevor would have spent $5 million on luxury cars and status symbols. She was investing in children's futures. That evening, Trevor came home in an unusually good mood. "Let's go out to dinner," he suggested. "Somewhere nice." "Sure. Where do you want to go?" "Your choice." They went to a mid-range Italian restaurant. Trevor was attentive, charming, clearly feeling guilty about his afternoon with Vanessa. He held her hand across the table, asked about her work, laughed at her stories about student antics. It would have been touching if Brianna didn't know the truth. Instead, it was just sad. He was performing too, trying to assuage his conscience before he destroyed their marriage. "Our anniversary is coming up," Trevor said over dessert. "What do you want to do?" "I'd love to go to Montrose," Brianna said. I know it's expensive, but for 5 years together maybe we could splurge? Trevor hesitated. She could see him calculating whether it was worth spending money on her when he was planning to leave shortly after. But refusing would seem suspicious. Sure, he finally said. Let me see if I can get a reservation. I'll call tomorrow, Brianna offered. Sometimes they have cancellations. Thanks, babe. That would be great. She smiled at him across the table, this man who thought he was so clever, so in control. He had no idea the web she'd woven around him, the trap he was walking into. In 2 weeks, their anniversary dinner would be the most expensive meal of his life. And he wouldn't pay a single cent of it. The 2 weeks before the anniversary felt like the longest of Brianna's life. Every morning she woke up beside Trevor and played her role. Every evening she cooked dinner and listened to his lies. Every night she reviewed documents from Helena, building the case that would destroy any claim he might make to her wealth. The timing is perfect, Helena told her during one of their strategy sessions. The inheritance happened 6 months into your marriage, was kept completely separate from marital assets, and has been managed solely by you through private trustees. In this state that makes it entirely yours. Trevor won't get a penny beyond his share of your minimal joint savings, roughly $8,000. He's stolen at least $15,000 from that joint account to fund his affair, Brianna noted, which we'll document in the filing. He may actually end up owing you money once we account for his misappropriation of marital funds. The anniversary fell on a Friday. Brianna took the day off from school, her first personal day all year. She spent the morning at a spa she owned through one of her LLCs, getting her hair done, nails perfect, skin glowing. The stylist didn't know she was working on the owner. Big date tonight? The woman asked while working on Brianna's hair. Anniversary dinner with my husband. How romantic. How many years? 5 years. Our last 5 years actually. The stylist missed the significance, chatting about romance and commitment. Brianna smiled and let her talk. By the time she left, she looked stunning. Elegant dress, perfect makeup, hair flowing in soft waves. She looked like success. She looked like power. She looked like everything Trevor was losing. At the house, Trevor was getting ready too. He'd bought a new suit, probably with money he'd skimmed from their account. He kissed her cheek when she came in. You look beautiful, he said, and she almost believed the sincerity in his voice. Thank you. So do you. The reservation at Montrose was for 7. They arrived right on time. The maitre d', who knew exactly who Brianna was, greeted them warmly. Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery, welcome. Your table is ready. He led them to the best table in the house by the window overlooking the city. Brianna had arranged everything perfectly. The lighting was intimate but clear. The table setting was elegant. And at a table across the room, though she hadn't told Trevor, she'd arranged for Vanessa to be dining with her work colleagues. A complimentary dinner for top real estate agents. Trevor didn't notice Vanessa at first. He was focused on the menu, on the wine list, clearly uncomfortable with the prices despite having suggested somewhere nice. Order whatever you want, Brianna said. It's our anniversary. We should celebrate properly. They ordered wine, an expensive Bordeaux that Trevor chose after internal debate. They ordered appetizers and entrees. The food was exquisite as Brianna knew it would be. She'd approved the chef personally. This place is incredible, Trevor said looking around. I'm surprised we got a reservation. Sometimes you get lucky, Brianna said. Actually, I need to tell you something about that. What? I own this restaurant. Well, part of a restaurant group that I own. Trevor laughed. Good one. I'm serious. He looked at her, smile fading. What are you talking about? 6 months ago, I inherited a fortune from my uncle Bernard. Montgomery Data Systems, along with substantial other assets. I'm currently worth approximately $2.8 billion. Trevor's face went through several expressions: disbelief, confusion, denial. That's not funny, Brianna. It's not a joke. She pulled out her phone and showed him a banking app. This is one of my accounts. Just one of several. He stared at the screen showing hundreds of millions of dollars. His face went pale. This is a fake app. Some kind of prank. It's not. I can prove it if you need, but I think you believe me. You're too smart not to recognize truth when you see it. Why didn't you tell me? His voice rose slightly. Because I wanted to see if you loved me for me or for what I could give you. She took a sip of wine. I tested you. Remember when I asked for $150 for groceries? You refused, told me I was careless with money, said you had important expenses. Meanwhile, you've been taking money from our joint account to rent an apartment for your mistress. Trevor's eyes widened. What are you? Vanessa Chin. Real estate agent. You met her 8 months ago. You've been seeing her 3 times a week at an apartment on Riverside. You've spent over $15,000 of our money on her. Dinners, jewelry, rent. Should I continue? Brianna, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I have photos, bank statements, text messages. I've had you under surveillance for 3 weeks. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. These are divorce papers. Already filed, processed, and approved. The service just needed my signature to become official. She signed the papers calmly while he watched in horror. Then she slid them across the table. You're getting nothing from my inheritance. It was kept completely separate from our marital assets. You'll get half of our joint savings, which totals about $8,000, minus the $15,000 you stole, which means you'll actually owe me $7,000. My attorney will be in touch about payment arrangements. Trevor's hands shook as he picked up the papers. You can't do this. We can work through this. I love you. Now you love me. Interesting timing. Brianna glanced across the room. Oh look, Vanessa is here. What a coincidence. Trevor's head whipped around. Vanessa had just noticed them, her face going white as she recognized the situation. I arranged for her to be here tonight, Brianna continued. Complimentary dinner for top real estate agents. She doesn't know who owns the restaurant, but she's about to learn. I wanted her to see this too. To understand that whatever future you two planned is based on lies. Brianna, please. Trevor reached for her hand but she pulled back. You told Vanessa I was too weak and poor to fight a divorce. That I'd just accept whatever you decided. You called me boring, limited, stuck in a dead-end job. You said you knew your wife, that I wasn't a fighter. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. You meant every word. And you were wrong about who I am and what I'm capable of. She stood, picking up her purse. Enjoy your dinner, Trevor. It's already paid for. Consider it a parting gift. And when Vanessa comes over to ask what just happened, you can explain how you threw away a life with a billionaire because you wanted to sleep with a real estate agent. Wait. He stood too desperate now. We can fix this. I'll end things with Vanessa. We can start over. With your money we could. There is no we anymore. And there's certainly no your money for you to access. She looked at him with something like pity. You know what's funny? If you'd been faithful, if you'd been the partner I thought you were, I would have shared everything with you. We could have built an incredible life together. But you chose $150 over billions. You chose lies over love. That was your decision. She walked away from the table, her head high, her steps confident. The entire restaurant had gone quiet, sensing the drama. As she passed Vanessa's table, she paused. He's all yours now, Brianna said pleasantly. Enjoy the man who values you at approximately $15,000 in stolen money. I hope it was worth it. The maitre d' opened the door for her. Have a good evening, Ms. Montgomery. Your driver is waiting. She'd arranged for a private car service, something else Trevor didn't know she could afford. As she slid into the back seat, she looked back at the restaurant. Through the window, she could see Trevor still standing at their table, divorce papers in hand, his whole world crumbling around him. She felt nothing. No triumph, no sadness, just a clean, clear certainty that she'd done exactly the right thing. Where to, Ms. Montgomery? The driver asked. Home, she said. Then corrected herself. Actually, no. Take me to the Riverside Towers penthouse. That's home now. As the car pulled away from Montrose, leaving Trevor and his destroyed life behind, Brianna felt something she hadn't felt in months. Free. The weekend after the anniversary dinner felt surreal. Brianna spent Saturday morning moving her few personal belongings from the house she'd shared with Trevor to her penthouse. She didn't want anything they'd bought together. Those items belonged to a life that was over. She took only what had been solely hers before the marriage. Photos from her childhood, books, her grandmother's jewelry box. She'd just finished unpacking when her phone rang. Helena. Trevor's attorney contacted me. He wants to negotiate. Brianna carried a box of books to her new bookshelf. There's nothing to negotiate. The divorce terms are final. He's claiming the inheritance should be considered marital property because it happened during your marriage. We both know that won't hold up. Inherited assets kept separate remain separate. Correct, but he's going to try anyway. His attorney is aggressive, probably told him they can drag this out and force a settlement. You should prepare for a fight. Let him fight. I have the best legal team money can buy, and I'm not backing down. On Monday morning, Brianna returned to school. Her colleagues noticed her new energy, the way she seemed lighter somehow. You look amazing, her fellow teacher Candace said. What happened? You're glowing. Just some life changes, Brianna said vaguely. Good ones. Teaching her students that day felt different. She'd always loved her job, but now she was doing it purely because she wanted to, not because she needed the paycheck. That freedom changed everything. She was more present, more creative, more able to focus on what mattered, helping kids learn. At lunch, she got a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Please. Vanessa. Brianna stared at it for a long moment. Then she blocked the number. She had nothing to say to Vanessa, and Vanessa had nothing to say that Brianna needed to hear. That evening, Trevor showed up at the house, their old house that Brianna had already moved out of. He'd called her repeatedly all day, but she hadn't answered. So he'd apparently decided to ambush her at home, not knowing she no longer lived there. She got a notification from the security system she'd had installed the week before. Trevor was at the front door. She pulled up the camera feed on her phone and watched him knock, then try his key. She'd had the locks changed that morning. Her phone rang. Trevor. She answered. What do you want? Let me in. We need to talk. I don't live there anymore. I've moved to my own place. Where? That's not your concern. What do you want, Trevor? Brianna, please. You have to understand, I made a mistake. Vanessa means nothing. You're my wife. We can get through this. I'm not your wife anymore. The divorce is filed and will be final in 60 days. Move on. You can't just throw away 5 years of marriage. I'm not throwing it away. You did that when you started sleeping with someone else. I'll end things with her completely. I'll do whatever you want. Please just give me another chance. His voice broke. I love you. You love my money, Brianna corrected. The woman you called boring and limited, who you planned to divorce right after our anniversary. You didn't love her. And now that you know she's a billionaire, suddenly you love her again. The math is obvious, Trevor. That's not fair. Fair? You stole $15,000 from our joint account to fund an affair, lied to me for 8 months, and planned to leave me thinking I'd be too poor and weak to fight back. Don't talk to me about fair. I never said you were weak. Yes, you did. To Vanessa. I have the recordings. Brianna kept her voice even. You told her I wasn't a fighter, that I'd just accept the divorce because I had no resources. You underestimated me completely. Silence on the other end. That's what I thought, Brianna said. Lose my number, Trevor. My attorney will handle everything else. She hung up before he could respond. On the security camera, she watched him stand at the door for several more minutes before finally leaving. He looked diminished somehow, like he'd physically shrunk. Maybe that's what happened when someone's world collapsed. They became smaller. Over the next week, Trevor's attorney filed motion after motion, trying to delay the divorce, trying to claim rights to her inheritance, trying to paint Brianna as vindictive and Trevor as a victim. Helena's team countered every move effortlessly. He's desperate, Helena said during one of their check-ins. His attorney knows they have no case, but Trevor is pushing for any possible angle. It's actually getting embarrassing. How long will this drag out? Another month at most. The judge won't tolerate frivolous delays. And once all the evidence of his affair and financial misconduct comes out in the filing, Trevor's going to look very bad. Meanwhile, Vanessa had apparently decided that direct contact with Brianna wasn't working, so she tried a different approach. She gave an interview to a local gossip blog, painting herself as a victim who'd been lied to by Trevor. I had no idea he was married at first, Vanessa claimed in the article. When I found out, I tried to end things, but he told me his marriage was over in everything but name. He said his wife didn't love him anymore. I'm heartbroken to learn the truth. Brianna read the article with detached amusement. Vanessa was trying to salvage her reputation by rewriting history. The text messages Patricia had recovered told a very different story. Vanessa had known about Brianna from the beginning and hadn't cared. Naomi called immediately after the article posted. Did you see what she said? I saw. It's fiction. Are you going to respond? Why would I? The truth is documented in the divorce filing, which is public record. Anyone who cares can read it there. Vanessa's lies don't affect me. You're really zen about this whole thing. I'm not zen. I'm just clear about what matters. Vanessa and Trevor wanted each other so badly they were willing to betray me. Now they have each other. That's their consequence to live with, not mine. But Trevor and Vanessa's relationship was apparently not going well. Patricia, who was still monitoring the situation per Brianna's instructions, reported that they'd had a massive fight at the Riverside apartment. Vanessa is furious that Trevor misrepresented his financial situation, Patricia explained. She thought she was getting a man with resources. Instead, she got someone who's about to owe his ex-wife $7,000 and has no real income. The fight got loud enough that neighbors complained. They deserve each other, Brianna said. 2 weeks after the anniversary confrontation, the divorce hearing took place. Brianna sat beside Helena in the courtroom, perfectly composed in a designer suit that cost more than Trevor used to make in a month. Across the room, Trevor sat with his attorney, looking haggard and defeated. The judge reviewed the filings efficiently. Trevor's attorney made a half-hearted argument about the inheritance timing, but the judge shut it down immediately. The inheritance was kept completely separate from marital assets, managed through private trustees, and never commingled with marital funds. It remains Ms. Montgomery's sole property. The judge looked at Trevor over his glasses. Furthermore, I see documented evidence that Mr. Montgomery misappropriated $15,000 in marital funds to support an extramarital affair. Ms. Montgomery is not only entitled to her inheritance, but also to restitution for those stolen funds. Trevor's attorney tried to argue, but the judge had clearly read the entire file and wasn't interested in excuses. The divorce is granted. Mr. Montgomery will pay Ms. Montgomery $7,000 in restitution for misappropriated funds, payable within 90 days. All of Ms. Montgomery's separately held assets remain her sole property. Each party retains their individual assets acquired after the separation. Are there any questions? No, Your Honor, Helena said smoothly. Trevor's attorney reluctantly agreed. Then we're adjourned. The judge banged his gavel. It was over. 5 years of marriage ended in a 15-minute hearing. Brianna stood, shook Helena's hand, and walked out of the courtroom without looking back at Trevor. In the hallway, Helena smiled. Clean, quick, and exactly the outcome we wanted. How do you feel? Free, Brianna said simply. Completely free. As she walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun, she saw Trevor on the steps, his attorney talking to him urgently. Trevor looked up and their eyes met for just a moment. She saw everything in his face: regret, anger, desperation, loss. She felt nothing but relief. This chapter was closed. Now she could begin the next one. Despite the judge's clear ruling, Trevor wasn't ready to give up. His attorney filed an appeal the following week, claiming procedural errors and asking for a review of the asset distribution. Helena wasn't surprised. Appeals are standard in high-net-worth divorces, she explained to Brianna over coffee. They're hoping you'll get tired of the process and offer a settlement just to make it go away. That's not happening, Brianna said firmly. I know. And the appeal won't succeed. The original ruling was sound, the evidence was overwhelming, and frankly, Trevor has no grounds. But it'll take a few months to wind through the system. Fine. I have time and resources. He has neither. What Trevor did have, apparently, was desperation. Over the next few weeks, he tried everything. He called Brianna's mother, claiming Brianna had changed and turned cold. Her mother called Brianna, confused. Trevor says you inherited money and it's changed you, her mother said. Is that true? I did inherit money from Uncle Bernard. And it didn't change me, it revealed Trevor's true character. He was having an affair, Mom. For 8 months. He was planning to divorce me right after our anniversary because he thought I was too poor to fight back. Her mother gasped. No, Trevor wouldn't. He did. I have proof. Photos, messages, financial records. He was stealing money from our joint account to pay for his mistress. The silence on the other end was heavy. Finally, her mother said quietly, I'm so sorry, baby. I had no idea. No one did. He was very good at hiding it. Are you okay? I'm better than okay, Mom. I'm starting over, and this time I'm doing it on my terms. Trevor also tried reaching out to mutual friends, painting himself as a victim of Brianna's sudden wealth and claiming she'd become materialistic and cold. But most of their friends had seen the divorce filing, public record, and knew the truth. The ones who believed Trevor weren't really friends Brianna wanted to keep anyway. More problematic was Vanessa's continued attempts to control the narrative. She'd apparently hired a PR consultant and was giving interviews about being a victim of deception. One gossip site ran a sympathetic profile calling her, the other woman who didn't know. Patricia showed Brianna the article during one of their final meetings. She's really pushing this innocent victim angle. Let her, Brianna said. The court documents show the text messages where she explicitly discussed Trevor's marriage and encouraged him to leave me. Anyone who looks at the actual evidence will see she's lying. Some people won't look at the evidence though. They'll just believe the sympathetic interviews. That's fine. I don't need everyone to know the truth, just the people who matter. And anyone who matters will check the facts. In reality, Vanessa's PR campaign backfired. Several journalists did check the court records and wrote follow-up pieces pointing out the contradictions between her claims and the documented evidence. Within a week, public opinion had shifted decidedly against her. Her real estate firm quietly asked her to take a leave of absence until the scandal died down. Trevor, meanwhile, was struggling financially. With no real income beyond sporadic consulting work and now owing Brianna $7,000, he couldn't maintain his lifestyle. He had to give up the Riverside apartment. He moved back in with his parents, which apparently did not go well. Patricia's final report included an interview with one of Trevor's neighbors from the apartment building. He told everyone his wife left him because she got rich and didn't need him anymore. Made himself sound like a victim. Then the divorce records came out and we all saw what he really did. Lost a lot of respect in the building. Brianna filed the report away. She wasn't trying to destroy Trevor, she was just letting natural consequences play out. He'd made choices and those choices had results. That was life. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Trevor's appeal was denied. The appellate judge's ruling was brief and pointed. Appellant presents no compelling evidence of procedural error or misapplication of law. The original ruling is sound and is hereby affirmed. Helena called Brianna with the news. It's completely over. He can't file any more appeals. The divorce is final and binding. Thank you, Helena. For everything. It was my pleasure. And honestly, one of the easiest cases I've ever handled. When you have the truth and the evidence on your side, the law works beautifully. That evening, Brianna stood on her penthouse balcony and allowed herself to feel the full weight of what had happened. She'd been betrayed, tested, and underestimated. She'd survived it all and come out stronger. The legal battle was over. The marriage was over. That entire chapter of her life was closed. Now she could focus on what came next. She'd already made plans. Her company was expanding internationally. Her investment portfolio was diversified and growing. She'd established a foundation focused on education, with millions of dollars allocated to improving schools in underprivileged areas. She was making a difference in ways she'd never imagined possible. But something was still missing. She was successful, financially secure, legally free. She had everything except someone to share it with. And despite her resolve to focus on herself, she felt the loneliness sometimes, especially in quiet moments like this. Her phone rang. Naomi. Hey, are you free this Saturday? Probably. Why? There's a charity gala for the Arts Foundation. I'm on the planning committee and we could use some additional sponsors. I thought maybe you'd be interested? It's also just a fun event, good food, interesting people, live music. What's the cause? Funding arts programs in public schools. A lot of schools have cut their music and art classes due to budget constraints. The foundation provides grants to restore those programs. Brianna smiled. Arts education was something she believed in strongly. As a teacher, she'd seen how music and art helped students express themselves and develop creativity. I'm in. I'll sponsor at whatever level you need. Really? The platinum sponsorship is $100,000. Make it $250,000. And yes, I'll attend the gala. Naomi laughed. I'm never getting used to you being rich. This is wild. Neither am I, honestly. But if I have the resources, I should use them for good. Saturday arrived and Brianna prepared for the gala with care. She chose a deep blue gown that was elegant without being flashy, styled her hair simply, and wore minimal jewelry, her grandmother's pearl necklace and matching earrings. She looked sophisticated, successful, but not ostentatious. The gala was at the Riverside Arts Center, a beautiful venue with soaring ceilings and contemporary architecture. Brianna arrived with Naomi, who immediately started introducing her to various board members and donors. This is Brianna Montgomery, our platinum sponsor for tonight, Naomi said, her pride evident. People were impressed, curious, polite. They asked about her background, her interest in arts education, her company. Brianna answered honestly but briefly, more interested in listening to others talk about the foundation's work. She was standing near a sculpture display, taking a moment alone, when someone spoke beside her. Beautiful piece, isn't it? She turned to find a man about her age, maybe slightly older, studying the sculpture. He was tall, had kind eyes, and wore a well-fitted suit with an ease that suggested he was comfortable but not defined by formal events. It is, Brianna agreed. The use of negative space is really clever. It makes you think about what's not there as much as what is. Exactly. He smiled. I'm Julian Pierce. I volunteer with the foundation. I'm an architect and I help design the new art spaces in schools. Brianna Montgomery. I'm a sponsor and a teacher, so this cause matters to me personally. A teacher? That's wonderful. What grade? Middle school. Math primarily, but I teach some integrated STEM classes too. They talked easily about education, about architecture, about the intersection of art and learning. Julian was genuinely passionate about his volunteer work, describing how proper space design could enhance student creativity and engagement. He spoke about learning through environment and democratizing beauty in ways that resonated with Brianna's own teaching philosophy. Too often, art spaces in underprivileged schools are afterthoughts, Julian said. Cramped classrooms with bad lighting and no acoustic consideration for music programs. Kids deserve better. Beautiful spaces that inspire them. I completely agree. And it's not just about aesthetics, it's about sending a message that their education matters, that they matter. Exactly. He looked at her with real appreciation. You get it? A lot of people see arts education as frivolous, but it's fundamental to human development. They talked through most of the evening, only interrupted when Naomi found Brianna to introduce her to the foundation director. Julian politely excused himself but mentioned he hoped they could talk more later. Who was that? Naomi asked, eyeing Julian as he walked away. Julian Pierce. He's an architect who volunteers with the foundation. And he's completely into you. Did you see how he looked at you? Naomi. I'm just saying it's nice to see you talking to someone. You've been so focused on the divorce and your business, you deserve to have some fun too. Later, as the evening was winding down, Julian found her again. I know this might be forward, but would you like to get coffee sometime? I'd love to continue our conversation about education and design. Brianna hesitated for just a moment. She'd been so focused on protecting herself, on building her new life alone, that the idea of opening up to someone felt risky. But Julian seemed genuine. He talked to her for hours without asking about her wealth or her company. He didn't even seem to know who she was beyond a teacher and sponsor. I'd like that, she said. They exchanged numbers. As Brianna left the gala that night, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. Not love, not yet. Just the simple possibility of connection with someone who saw her as a person, not as money or status or opportunity. It was a small feeling, tentative and fragile. But it was there. And for now that was enough. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Brianna's life had transformed in ways she was still processing. Her company's value had continued to grow exponentially, her investments were performing beyond projections, and her foundation was making real change in education across the state. But the biggest surprise was Julian. Their coffee date had turned into dinner, which turned into weekend walks through museums, which turned into long phone conversations about everything and nothing. Julian was unlike anyone she'd dated before, grounded, thoughtful, content with who he was. He had a successful architecture firm but wasn't defined by it. He volunteered regularly, not for recognition but because he genuinely believed in giving back. And remarkably, he'd fallen for her before he knew about her wealth. That revelation came 2 months into dating when Julian mentioned offhandedly that he was working on a project for that Montgomery Data Systems company. Wait, Brianna had said. You know about Montgomery Data Systems? Sure, they hired my firm to design their new headquarters. It's a fascinating project. They want sustainable architecture that reflects their tech innovation. He paused. Why? Julian. I own that company. His expression had been priceless, shock, confusion, then understanding. You're that Montgomery? The owner they keep mentioning in meetings but who we never see because she manages everything remotely? Yes. You're a billionaire. Yes. He'd sat back processing, then laughed. I've been buying you coffee at that little shop near your school. Did you think that was cheap? I thought it was sweet. I literally bought a Billionaire a $4 latte. And I appreciated every one. They talked for hours that night about wealth, about identity, about what really mattered. Julian admitted he'd been intimidated at first, not by the money itself but by what it might mean about their relationship. Would she still want to date a regular architect when she could have anyone? I don't want anyone, Brianna had said simply. I want someone who sees me, who cares about my thoughts on teaching philosophy and whether I prefer impressionism or abstract expressionism. You've done that from the start. Because you're interesting, Julian said. The money is just a detail about your life. It's not who you are. That attitude proved itself over the following months. Julian never asked her for anything, never expected her to pay for expensive things, never treated her differently than before. When she offered to sponsor his community center project with a substantial donation, he'd been grateful but had insisted on a formal grant process through her foundation to ensure it was evaluated on merit, not favoritism. "I want your foundation to fund projects that matter," he'd explained. "If my project qualifies on its own merits, great. But I won't take advantage of our relationship." She'd fallen a little bit more in love with him right then. In May, Brianna made her first major public appearance as the owner of Montgomery Data Systems. The company was launching a revolutionary new encryption protocol that would change data security across industries. The press conference was scheduled for their headquarters, the building Julian's firm had designed. Standing at the podium, looking out at dozens of reporters and industry leaders, Brianna felt nervous for the first time in months. She'd given presentations to her company's board, but this was different. This was announcing herself to the world. "Good morning. I'm Brianna Montgomery, owner and principal investor of Montgomery Data Systems. For those wondering why I've remained largely out of the public eye until now, I have a simple explanation. I'm a middle school teacher who inherited a tech company, and I wanted to learn the business before representing it publicly." That got appreciative chuckles. She continued, explaining the new encryption protocol, their expansion plans, their commitment to ethical data practices. She spoke clearly and confidently, fielding questions from reporters with the same patience she used with curious students. One journalist asked, "Ms. Montgomery, there were reports about your divorce last year. How has that affected your management of the company?" "That's personal and irrelevant to this business announcement," Brianna said firmly but politely. "But I'll say this. I'm committed to building a company culture based on integrity, respect, and ethical behavior, values that matter in both business and personal life." Next question. After the press conference, Janet Rodriguez pulled her aside. "That was masterful. You're a natural." "I don't know about natural, but I've learned that speaking truth is simpler than maintaining elaborate stories." The press coverage was extensive and positive. Headlines called her the teacher billionaire and tech's most reluctant CEO. Several articles focused on her foundation work and her commitment to education. A few mentioned the divorce, but most reporters respected her privacy and focused on the business news. That evening, Julian took her to dinner at a small Italian restaurant, his favorite place, not expensive or fancy, just authentic. They sat in a corner booth, sharing pasta and wine, talking about the day. "You were amazing today," Julian said. "Confident, clear, in command. Very impressive." "Thank you. I was terrified. Didn't show at all." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm proud of you. Not because you're successful or rich, but because you handled a difficult situation with grace and turned it into something meaningful." "The divorce. Everything. Trevor's betrayal could have made you bitter or vindictive. Instead, you used it as motivation to build something better. You took control of your life." Brianna squeezed his hand. "I couldn't have done it without support. Your support. I didn't do anything. You treated me like a person, not a story or an opportunity. You liked me before you knew about the money. That mattered more than you know." They finished dinner and walked through the city, hand in hand, talking about Julian's latest community center project and Brianna's plans to expand her foundation internationally. It was a perfect evening. Simple, genuine, full of the kind of contentment that comes from being with someone who truly knows you. The next month brought news about Trevor. He'd apparently tried to start a consulting business, but it had failed. He'd moved out of his parents' house into a small apartment, was working a regular job in sales, living a completely ordinary life. Through mutual acquaintances, Brianna heard he'd broken up with Vanessa shortly after the appeal was denied. She dumped him when she realized there was no money, the acquaintance explained. He thought they'd build a life together, but she'd only been interested in what he could provide. Ironic, right? Brianna felt nothing hearing this. No satisfaction, no sympathy, just a distant acknowledgement that karma had a way of working things out. In July, Brianna's foundation announced a major initiative, $50 million allocated over 5 years to improve public school education infrastructure. The money would fund teacher training, classroom resources, arts programs, and technology access in underprivileged districts. The press conference for this announcement was even bigger than the last one. Brianna stood with Janet, Naomi, and several education leaders, explaining the program's goals. "Education changed my life," Brianna told the assembled reporters. "My teachers believed in me when I was just a kid with potential and not much else. They gave me tools to succeed. This foundation is about making sure every child has access to that kind of support, regardless of their economic situation. Every child deserves teachers who are properly trained and fairly compensated, schools that are safe and well-resourced, and programs that help them explore their interests and talents. The initiative received national attention. Brianna was interviewed on morning shows, featured in business magazines, and invited to speak at education conferences. She accepted some opportunities and declined others, always prioritizing her teaching work and her foundation over personal publicity. In September, nearly a year after her divorce was finalized, Brianna stood in her old middle school classroom preparing for a new academic year. She'd considered quitting teaching now that she didn't need the income, but the idea had felt wrong. She loved teaching. She loved her students. Money hadn't changed that. "Ms. Montgomery," one of her former students ran up to her in the hallway. "I saw you on TV. You're famous." "I'm not famous, sweetie. I just do some business work in addition to teaching." "My mom said you're really rich and you're using your money to help schools." "Is that true?" "It's true that I'm working to improve education, yes." "That's so cool. I want to do that when I grow up, make money and use it to help people." Brianna smiled. "Then work hard, be kind, and never stop learning. You can do anything you set your mind to." That afternoon, teaching her first class of the year, Brianna felt complete in a way she hadn't in years. She had wealth, yes. She had success and influence and opportunity. But she also had purpose. She had meaningful work. She had genuine love with Julian. She had a future she was building deliberately and thoughtfully. Her phone buzzed during planning period. A text from Julian, "Dinner tonight?" "I'm cooking." She texted back, "Perfect. I'll bring wine." As she drove to Julian's house that evening, wine in the passenger seat, she thought about how different her life was from a year ago. Then she'd been testing Trevor with $150, discovering his affair, planning her escape. Now she was free, successful, and genuinely happy. Julian greeted her at the door with a kiss. "How was the first day back?" "Wonderful. I love teaching." "I know you do. It's one of the many things I love about you." They cooked dinner together in Julian's modest kitchen, which he refused to renovate despite Brianna's offers to hire the best designers. "I like my kitchen," he'd insisted. "It's comfortable." Over pasta that Julian had made from scratch, they talked about their days, their plans, their dreams. Julian mentioned a potential project building affordable housing with integrated community spaces. Brianna talked about expanding her foundation's reach to rural schools that were even more underserved than urban ones. "We make a good team," Julian observed. "You focus on education infrastructure, I focus on physical infrastructure. Together we could actually change communities." "Is that a proposal?" Brianna teased. Julian looked at her seriously. "Not yet. But someday when we're both ready, yes. I want to build a life with you, Brianna. Not because you're wealthy or successful. I wanted that before I knew about any of that. But because you're kind and smart and purposeful. Because you see the world the way I do and want to make it better." Brianna felt her eyes well up. "I want that too." "Good." He raised his wine glass. "To the future." "To the future," she echoed, clinking her glass against his. She'd been through betrayal, heartbreak, and the complete dissolution of a life she'd thought was real. She'd been tested and underestimated. But she'd emerged stronger, clearer, more certain of who she was and what she wanted. Trevor had thought the $150 test would be about money. He'd been wrong. It had been about character, about values, about who someone truly was when they thought no one was watching. And Brianna had learned more from that test than Trevor ever would. She'd learned her own strength. She'd learned that wealth was a tool, not an identity. She'd learned that starting over was possible, even when it seemed impossible. Most importantly, she'd learned that the best revenge wasn't destroying those who hurt you. It was building a life so meaningful, so authentic, so full of genuine love and purpose that they became completely irrelevant. 1 year after serving Trevor with divorce papers at their anniversary dinner, Brianna stood on stage at the National Education Summit in Washington, D.C. She'd been invited as a keynote speaker to discuss philanthropic innovation in public education. The auditorium held over 2,000 educators, administrators, and policy makers. "Good morning. I'm Brianna Montgomery, and I'm a middle school math teacher from Portland." She paused while the audience applauded. "I'm also the owner of Montgomery Data Systems and founder of the Montgomery Education Foundation. But here's what matters most. I'm an educator first. Everything else I do stems from that identity." She spoke for 40 minutes about her vision for education funding, about empowering teachers, about ensuring every child had access to quality learning regardless of their zip code. She shared stories from her classroom, making policy discussions concrete with real student examples. The audience was engaged, responsive, clearly moved by her passion. After her speech, she was surrounded by educators wanting to talk, share their own school challenges, thank her for her foundation's work. She stayed for over an hour, listening to each person, taking notes on ideas for future foundation projects. Finally, her assistant Julia, hired 6 months ago to help manage her increasingly complex schedule, gently reminded her they needed to leave for the airport. Brianna had another commitment back in Portland that evening. On the private plane she'd purchased for efficient travel between her various commitments, Brianna reviewed documents for her company's board meeting the next day. Montgomery Data Systems had expanded into artificial intelligence ethics, developing tools to ensure transparent, accountable AI systems. It was cutting-edge work that aligned with her values. Her phone rang. Julian. Hey you. How was DC? Good. The speech went well and I talked to some amazing educators with brilliant ideas. I'm not surprised. When you talk about education, people listen. It's genuine passion, you can't fake that. How's the community center coming? Foundation is poured, framing starts next week. This is going to be beautiful, Bri. The space is going to serve hundreds of kids who currently have nowhere safe to go after school. I can't wait to see it. You'll be back in time for dinner? Should be there by 7. Perfect. I'm making your favorite. They talked for a few more minutes before Julian had to get back to a meeting with contractors. After hanging up, Brianna leaned back in her seat, looking out at the clouds below. Her life felt impossibly full. Teaching, running her company, managing her foundation, building a relationship with Julian, maintaining friendships, investing in meaningful projects. It was exactly what she wanted. That evening, she met Julian at the nearly completed community center. He walked her through the space, pointing out features. The music room with proper acoustics, the art studio with northern light, the computer lab with the latest technology, the gymnasium with basketball courts that could also serve as an event space. The foundation's grant made all of this possible, Julian said. Without that funding, we'd have built something functional but basic. This is beautiful. Kids deserve beautiful spaces, Brianna said, echoing Julian's words from their first conversation at the charity gala. You taught me that. We teach each other, he corrected. That's what partners do. They drove to Brianna's penthouse for dinner. Julian had indeed made her favorite, lemon pasta with asparagus, simple but perfect. They ate on the balcony, watching the city lights come on as the sun set. I saw something interesting today, Julian said. A news article about Trevor. Brianna looked up. She rarely thought about Trevor anymore. What about him? He got engaged. To someone new, not Vanessa. A woman he met at his sales job apparently. Good for him, Brianna said and meant it. I hope they're happy. You're not bothered? Why would I be? That chapter is closed. He's living his life, I'm living mine. I genuinely hope he's learned from his mistakes and will treat this woman better than he treated me. Julian studied her. You're remarkable, you know that? Most people would harbor some resentment. Resentment would only hurt me, not him. He made choices, faced consequences, and is moving forward. So am I. There's no benefit to holding on to anger. See, this is why I love you. Brianna smiled. Because I'm pragmatic about my ex-husband? Because you're genuine. You say what you mean what you say, and you don't waste energy on things that don't matter. He reached across the table and took her hand. You focus on what's real and important. Later that night, lying in bed, Brianna thought about the past 18 months. The betrayal, the test, the discovery, the divorce, the rebuilding. It had been painful but necessary. She'd needed to let go of who she thought she was, the struggling teacher married to a man she thought loved her, to become who she actually was. The next morning, she taught her classes with renewed energy. Her students were preparing for a math competition, and she'd been coaching them for weeks. Watching them solve complex problems, seeing their confidence grow, reminded her why she still taught despite not needing to. At lunch, Candace joined her in the teacher's lounge. I saw your DC speech online. You were incredible. Thank you. Do you ever think about quitting teaching? You could focus full-time on your company and foundation. Never. This is where I belong. The foundation and the company are important, but this, she gestured around the school, this is my purpose. These kids need good teachers. I can be one while also doing other work. You're balancing more than anyone I know. How do you do it? I have good people helping me. Janet runs the company day to day. My foundation has an excellent executive director. Julian manages his firm independently. I've learned to delegate, trust my teams, and focus on strategic decisions rather than trying to control everything. And somehow you still grade papers and plan lessons. Because that's the work that feeds my soul. That Saturday, Brianna attended the grand opening of Julian's community center. The mayor was there, along with dozens of families from the neighborhood. Kids ran through the new spaces, excited and amazed. Parents teared up seeing what their children now had access to. Julian gave a short speech thanking the foundation, the volunteers, and the community. Then he surprised Brianna by asking her to say a few words. She stood before the crowd, looking at all the hopeful faces. This center represents something important. The belief that every child deserves opportunity. My foundation provided funds, Julian's firm provided brilliant design, and this community provided heart. Together we've created something meaningful. To the kids who'll use this space, work hard, dream big, support each other. And remember that people believe in you. The applause was warm and genuine. Afterward, kids ran up to Brianna, thanking her, asking questions about the art supplies and the computers. She talked to each one, learning their names, asking about their interests. One girl, maybe 12 years old, looked at her seriously. Are you really a teacher? I am. I teach middle school math. But you're also rich? I have resources, yes. How did that happen? I inherited money from a family member. But you know what I learned? Money only matters if you use it for good things. Otherwise it's just numbers in an account. The girl considered this. I want to be a teacher when I grow up. Then study hard, be patient with people, and never stop learning. Teaching is the best job in the world. As the sun set and the opening celebration wound down, Julian found Brianna sitting on a bench outside the center, watching kids play basketball on the new courts. Tired? He asked, sitting beside her. Happy tired. This was wonderful. It was. And it's just the beginning. We're already planning 2 more centers in other neighborhoods. Brianna looked at him. If you're willing to fund them, my firm is willing to design them. Partners? Always. Julian put his arm around her and they sat in comfortable silence, watching the community enjoy this new resource. Eventually he spoke quietly. I'm going to marry you someday, Brianna Montgomery. I want you to know that. I'm not asking today because I want us to be absolutely sure, but I'm sure. You're the person I want to build a life with. Brianna leaned into him. I'm sure too. Yeah. You love me for who I am, not what I have. You respect my work, my values, my choices. You make me laugh and you make me think. You're patient and kind and good. Why wouldn't I want to marry you? So when I ask, you'll say yes? When you ask, I'll say yes. They sat on that bench outside the community center they'd built together, making plans for their future. No grand declarations, no dramatic gestures, just 2 people who genuinely cared about each other and wanted to build something meaningful together. 1 month later, on a random Tuesday evening, Julian made them dinner at his house. After they'd eaten and cleaned up, he took Brianna's hand and led her to the living room. Remember when we first met? At the Arts Foundation Gala? Of course. I saw you standing by that sculpture and I thought you were the most interesting person in the room. Then we talked and I realized I was right. You were smart and passionate and real. Julian, let me finish. He smiled nervously. I fell in love with you that night. I know that's fast and maybe sounds dramatic, but it's true. Every day since then has confirmed what I felt in that moment. You're the person I want beside me for everything life brings. He pulled out a small box and opened it. The ring inside was simple and beautiful. A single diamond on a platinum band, elegant without being ostentatious. Brianna Montgomery, will you marry me? She looked at Julian, this good, kind, genuine man who'd loved her when she had nothing to offer but herself, who'd continued loving her through everything, who'd built a life alongside her based on shared values and mutual respect. Yes, she said simply. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring on her finger and pulled her into a kiss. When they broke apart, both had tears in their eyes. I don't care about the money, Julian said. I want you to know that. If you lost everything tomorrow, I'd still want this. I know. That's why I said yes. 6 months later, they married in a small ceremony at the community center they'd built together. It wasn't ostentatious or expensive, just 50 close friends and family, simple flowers, a string quartet of music students from Brianna's foundation programs, and vows they'd written themselves. I promise to see you clearly, love you honestly, and build a life with you that matters, Brianna said, looking at Julian with complete certainty. I promise to be your partner in all things, in joy and difficulty, in success and challenge, in the mundane and the extraordinary. I promise to value what you value, support what you create, and always see you as a person first, not as wealth or status or anything else, Julian responded. I promise to build with you, dream with you, and face whatever comes with you. They exchanged rings, kissed, and walked back down the aisle hand in hand while their guests cheered. The reception was held right there in the community center, with catering from local businesses and decorations by neighborhood kids who'd used the art studio to create them. It was perfect, meaningful, authentic, full of the people and values that actually mattered. Trevor was not invited, obviously, but Brianna heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd gotten the wedding announcement. His response, reportedly, was a quiet "she deserves that" before changing the subject. He'd apparently learned something from the disaster of their marriage. At the reception, Brianna's mother pulled her aside, crying happy tears. "I'm so proud of you, baby. Not because of the money or the success, but because you chose yourself. You walked away from someone who didn't value you and built a life with someone who does. Thank you, Mom. And you're still teaching. After everything, you're still in that classroom. That's who you really are." "It is," Brianna agreed. "Everything else is extra." As the evening wound down, Brianna and Julian stood together on the community center's balcony, looking at the city lights. In the distance was her penthouse, her building, her city. Below them was the center they'd created together, full of possibilities for local kids. Around them were friends, colleagues, students who'd become family. "Happy?" Julian asked. "Completely." Brianna turned to him. "You know what the best part of the past 2 years has been?" "What?" "Learning who I really am. Trevor's betrayal forced me to see clearly, to understand my worth, my strength, my values. I had to lose everything I thought mattered to find out what actually does matter. Which is purpose, genuine love, meaningful work, making a difference, building a life that reflects what I believe." She looked at her wedding ring, simple and perfect. Trevor thought the $150 test was about money. It wasn't. It was about character. He failed that test in every way. But failing it gave me the chance to pass my own test, to prove to myself that I'm stronger than my worst moment, that I can build something better from broken pieces. "You didn't just build something better," Julian said. "You built something extraordinary." "We built something extraordinary," Brianna corrected. "Together." They kissed as the city sparkled below them, two people who'd found each other at exactly the right time, who'd built a partnership based on shared values and genuine love, who were using their combined resources, emotional, financial, and creative, to make their corner of the world better. A year ago, Brianna had stood in a parking lot testing her husband with a $150 request and discovering his betrayal. Tonight, she stood on a balcony wearing a wedding ring, surrounded by people who loved her for exactly who she was, knowing she'd built a life of purpose and meaning. Trevor had called her weak, limited, boring. He'd been catastrophically wrong about all of it. She was strong, expansive, fascinating. She was a teacher who'd become a billionaire who'd remained a teacher. She was a woman who'd been betrayed who'd chosen grace over vengeance. She was a person who'd discovered that the best revenge wasn't destroying those who hurt you, it was building a life so authentic and meaningful that they became an irrelevant footnote in your story. As she and Julian rejoined their wedding reception, dancing with friends, celebrating with family, laughing with students who'd become more than just students, Brianna felt complete. Not because she had money or success or even love, though she had all three, but because she'd become exactly who she was meant to be. And that, she realized, was the real happy ending. Not the prince or the palace or the pile of gold. Just knowing herself, choosing wisely, and building a life that mattered. Trevor had given her $150 test thinking it would reveal her weakness. Instead, it had revealed her strength. And that strength had carried her here, to this moment, this life, this future. She wouldn't change a thing.